Today we're going to talk about pesticides, how pesticides degrade, their persistence, and how they bioaccumulate. This topic will be introduced by me, Diana, and my group mates Rustina, Aiym, and Bibimaryam. So first of all, we will discuss what pesticides are. Pesticides are tools we use to control harmful pests that can damage this for crops, for forests, and maybe landscapes. So as you can see, for example, types of pesticides is insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and rodenticides. So the word pesticide is a general term that's used to describe a substance that kill or control the pests like insects, maybe weeds that compete with plants for nutrition, for sunlight, and so on, and fungicides that can harm crops and reduce their quality and spread diseases among humans and animals. Rodenticides also some kind of animals that mice, for example mice and so on, that also affect to the plants and spread diseases among humans and so on. So pesticides can be either chemical compounds like carbamates and biological agents like viruses and bacteria and so on. They work either by killing them or stopping them from spreading and preventing them from causing harm to crops. So let's discuss what is environmental fate. Environmental fate is a term that refers to what happens to pesticides after we use them. So for example, it includes breaking down into smaller substances through processes like photodegradation, chemical degradation using chemical reactions, biodegradation using microorganisms, and so on. We will discuss about this concept more later. And accumulating in soil or being washed into water sources, affecting to the water animals, aquatic animals, transforming into other substances which may be less harmful or more harmful. The last one is impacting living organisms, for example birds, mammals, insects, plants, and fish. As you can see from this picture, plants, pesticides taken up by plants and maybe harm these plants that don't need this kind of pesticides and affect to their quality. Also, pesticides can be accumulated in the soil and stay there for decades, for many years, and affect also to the soil and making it less healthy. So third one is air. Evaporated pesticides travel through the air and affect nearby plants and animals and even people if it inhales them. The last one is natural water. So rain or irrigation help to these pesticides wash it into the water sources and also affecting to the water. Some pesticides stay in the soil for many years. Mariam will talk about this concept further. So next, let's look at all the main properties of pesticides. As Diana said before, pesticides don't just disappear after being used, they stay in the environment for a long time. This happens because they are persistent, which meaning they don't break down easily. Their persistence depends on their chemical structure and the environmental conditions like temperature, soil types, moisture, and the sunlight. So why do pesticides persist? First of all, it depends on their chemical structures. For example, functional group. Some pesticides have halogens like chlorine or fluorine, which make them more stable and they don't break down easily. For example, DDT, dichlorodiphenyl-trichloroethane. Their functional group chlorine helps them stay in the environment for a long time. The second one is functional group, hydroxyl functional group, dissolve in water more easily and break down faster. For example, 2,4-D herbicide. The next one is covalent bonds. Second, pesticides have strong chemical bonds like covalent bonds, strong bonds that don't break down easily.
The next one is halogen bonds. Halogens like chlorine and fluorine, they form extra bonds with carbon atoms and they don't break down easily. For example, also DDT. The next one is aromatic rings. Special aromatic rings like benzene that make pesticides very stable. The last one is large and complex molecules. Bigger pesticides are harder for microbes and sunlights to break down. For example, DDT stay in the environmental 10 years, over 10 years. So because of these properties, persistent pesticides stay in the environment for a long time and they accumulate in living organisms and they have negative effects in our organism and also animals. Rustina will talk about this.
Now let's talk about how pesticides can build up in living organism and why is it a problem. So when people exposed to the pesticides, especially those people who work with them regularly, so their organism can absorb pesticides faster than they can break down them or remove them from the body. So it can lead to the health damage, for example, like endocrine disruption. So this process by accumulation happens in a few ways. The first one by breathing in pesticides, the second one by eating foods contaminated with pesticides, the third one by absorbing them through the skin, the last one passing from the mother to the baby during pregnancy. So as Bibimaryam said before, the one pesticide like DDT are persistent. So why this happens? So it means that they don't break down to the safer substance, and it's because of their chemical structure. As we know, DDT has a carbon-chlorine bond, which are very strong, and it don't dissolve in water. It can just bioaccumulate in fatty tissues, and it's really huge problem nowadays. I want to say that bioaccumulation happens not only in one organism, it can travel up the food chain. So this process called biomagnification is where pesticide level increase as we move up the food chain. So for example, one plant can absorb from the soil pesticides, and after that one insect can eat this plant and get a small amount of pesticides, and after that one bird can eat many insects and get a larger portion of this contaminant insects, and after that top predator like a human can eat this bird and get a really fatal amount of this contaminate bird with pesticides. So as we can see, in each step the concentration of pesticides increase, and it's a really huge problem for top predators because it can lead to really reach to the fatal amounts or even toxic. So the case study is our silent spring. So these birds can expose to the DDT, so their eggshell become a sin and their population was declined. So in conclusion, in summary, I want to add that bioaccumulation and biomagnification are the major concern because they allow toxic chemicals like pesticides to build up in ecosystems. So now I will talk about further about degradation of pesticides nowadays.
So now let's talk about what is the degradation of the pesticide. Degradation is a process when a pesticide transformed into simpler, less harmful compounds like carbon dioxide, water, and ammonia by the results of the chemical and biological reactions. And we have the two types of the degradation. It's the chemical degradation and biological degradation. Chemical degradation includes the four main methods. First, it is the incineration. It's like a type of combustion reaction, which means it requires a high temperature, about the 1000 degree of Celsius. But there are some exceptions because it works only with non-volatile pesticides.
As you can see from this reaction, when it reacts with the oxygen in the presence of the heat, they can produce the carbon dioxide, water, and other byproducts, which is less harmful than the pesticide. But when the volatile pesticide goes through the incineration process, it can create the volatile organic compounds, which is more harmful than pesticide. It can lead to the secondary pollution problems. And second one is the hydrolysis. It's using the alkaline condition and metal catalyst to break down the phosphorus oxygen, phosphorus sulfur, and phosphorus nitrogen bonds, which is present in the organophosphorus, organonitrogen, organochloride pesticides. And as you can see from this reaction, when the organophosphorus pesticide goes through the hydrolysis, it can produce a hydrolyzed product and alcohol byproduct, which is less harmful. But in some cases, they have the limitation because it can produce the intermediate product, which is toxic, and can lead also to the secondary pollution problems. Next, it's the oxidation process. It's using the chemicals like ozone and hydrogen peroxide to create the active particles, and these active particles will work like fighters and break down the bonds of pesticides. And also we have the advanced oxidation processes, which is meant to create the more active and more stronger particles. And non-thermal plasma, it's also the oxidation process, but a little bit different because it's using the electric energy to break down the pesticide bonds. Next, it's the photochemicals. It's using the UV light, like a laser, to beam the bond of the pesticide. And also in this case, we use the photocatalyst, which calls the titanium dioxide, which work like a helper for the light. It's like using the soap when you wash your hands. It's better to wash with the soap rather than only with water. And the next one is biological degradation. Biological degradation, as their name said, it's using the living organisms like microbes, bacteria, and viruses to reduce the pesticide and degrade it to the simpler, less harmful compounds. It's usually occurs by using their enzymes, which present in the organisms, and depends on the pesticide type, environment, temperature, moisture, pH, because it's all the living organisms and they need to convenient environmental conditions. And also, as you can see from this reaction, we have the paration, which is the pesticide, and it goes through the first chemical degradation, and second is the biological degradation processes. After the chemical degradations, it creates an active compound, which called the pyroxone. But when it goes through the extraase, it's the enzyme which is located in the E. coli and other bacteria with the presence of the water. It can create the phosphoric acid and nitrophenol, which is less harmful than the paration. And as you can see, we can see that biological degradation can lead to the less harmful and more suitable. As you can see from these reactions, the chemical and biological degradation can work together, but each of them have their limitations.
To sum up, pesticides help control pests but can also harm the environment, so understanding how they move, how they break down is important for their safer use.
So some pesticides persist in the environment can be harmful, and the safe use and the eco-friendly are important.
So now we have these kind of processes like bioaccumulation, biomagnification is a kind of reminder for us that we should manage them properly and more safely.
Even if you have the process like degradation, they can have their own limitations, so we not just need to try to rely on to the degradation processes, but also need to try to avoid the using the pesticide in agriculture.
So there are our references we take from these links. our articles that we take informations, and we use GROK and CHATGPT for our texts.